I'm Aishwarya Soni from Study Spectrum TV channel, and today's topic that we'll be learning will be about the body movements. Now this topic is in the CBSE of class 6th. So I'm sure we all have observed a lot of body movements in us while we're sitting, we're performing any other activity or walking or running or writing. But in this lecture we'll cover a little more detailed study about the body movements and how it occurs and what is its importance. So I'll just start with a brief that I'll ask you to sit quietly for a minute and observe the number of body movements that are happening. So do you observe any change in your body while you're just sitting for a minute? I'm sure you do observe, and those changes would be you inhaling the air and you exhaling the air, and because of this the contraction and expansion of the lungs. The next movement you'd observe would be the circulation of blood through your heart, and which would result in the pumping of your heart. So you would feel your heartbeat. The other movement would be if you're hungry by any chance, the stomach might be grumbling. So that's also one movement. So in this lecture we'll be covering the topics like we'll be understanding the difference in movement and locomotion. Since movement and locomotion are misunderstood to be the same, then the next topic we'll be covering would be to understand the various types of joints and their importance. Now this is a very important topic because if joints wouldn't be there, we wouldn't be able to perform the movements as smoothly as we perform now. Neither would we be very flexible that we seem to be now. So the other objective of this lecture would be to understand about muscles, tendons, ligaments and cartilages. Now this we'll talk about in a little detailed manner when we reach over here. The next one would be to understand about the skeletal system as a framework. Now skeletal system, we know that our body is rigid, our body is in shape and our body is stiff. So this is because of skeletal system, and skeletal system in short is known as the skeleton of the body. So every organism that lives has a skeletal system, and I'll be explaining to you about that too in detail. The other objective is to understand about the movements in plants. So this is the next topic would be that to understand about locomotion in a variety of other animals, and these animals would be including reptiles, fishes and the normal animal too. Now before going to the body movements part, let's understand about how the various types of animals and various types of insects or fishes they move and what is their movement known as. This is just the whole lecture in short, and just a summary and a little bit more of understanding. So to explain this to you, I have made this table over here. This table consists of 3 columns. The first column consists of the animals, the second one does of the body parts they use for the movement to be performed, and the third one we'll be naming what is that movement known in those animals. So the first animal we have is the cow. Now we know that cow has 4 legs. So the body part it uses to move is its legs. And since it has 4 legs, it is also obvious that the cow will be walking. So how do they move? Their movement is known as walking. The other one, again the animal, it's a social animal, we, that's the human. So we do have one pair of legs, and that is used for walking. Alright, these two are really obvious. So let's move to the next one, and that's the snake. Now we know that the snake slides on the surface, on the floor, and hence the snake uses its whole body for sliding. We've seen the movement of snake. So the body part it uses is its whole body. And since the snake glides and slides on the floor, its movement is known as slithering. The next one we have birds. Now we know that birds have a pair of wings, and these wings are used for flying. So they have wings and it's used to fly. The next is insect. Insect again has legs and small feet on it, and these are used to crawl. Insects usually crawl like spiders, like many arthropods. So insects would have legs or feet, small feet again, and that would be used for crawling. The last one we have is the aquatic species. Now fish has a pair of fins, and the fins help in the process of swimming. So this is the whole of the table, and this was explained to you right now because we'll be talking about the locomotion mode of various animals later. So just to gist it, now I spoke about it. So from the table that we learned before, we learned about the movement of any animal, and we also learned about the movement, the name of the movement that's called. So let's know a little bit more about movement, or basically let's define what is movement. Now movement may be defined as the change in the position of any object. So movements are something we perform constantly, and certain movements are voluntary while certain movements are involuntary. The voluntary movements are usually simple and we are aware while our body is performing them, like you talking, or either you are walking or running or riding or eating. These are your voluntary movements. Now the movements that would be involuntary would be the movements which your body is performing but you are unaware of these movements. So those movements are actually very complex, right over here. Involuntary movements, the movements which we are unaware while the body is performing are complex movements, and the voluntary movements are the ones which our body performs and we are aware of, and these are the simple movements. Now the example of involuntary movements would be the beating of your heart, you breathing, or when you are just sitting and there's some dust particle entering your eye. So there's a natural mechanism that is involuntary, that your eye blinks and tries to remove the dust off the eye. So these are the examples of voluntary and involuntary movements. Now we know that animals, plants, as well as human beings and other complex organisms are able to perform a variety of movements. Now these movements may range from simple breathing to walking to the complex of the mechanisms. So now the plants that we know that actually plants cannot move, so plants cannot locomote, I mean. Now we know that plants don't have legs or any other organ or any other part of the body which helps them to move or to actually walk or locomote, in short. But it is also important for a plant, because it's a living being, to have nutrition, to respire and to survive. So how does it really perform all these functions? So a plant performs movements by the help of phototropism and geotropism. Now, as I told you, plant is unable to locomote, so plants will obviously just perform movements. And I'll just explain this to you with the help of an example. Now, what you need to do is, for a day, keep a plant towards the sunlight and keep half of the part of the plant in the shade and the other half towards the light that is exposed. Now what you would see is that the shoot of the plant, that is the stem of the plant, would incline towards the sunlight to gain the light for its processes like photosynthesis and any respiration and any other process that it needs to perform. So that movement is known as phototropism, right over here. That is the movement of plants towards the sunlight. The other movement is geotropism, that is over here. Now geotropism is actually the movement of plants into the ground, towards the ground, and this is performed by the roots. and this movement is helpful actually for uptake of minerals and water to provide the nutrition to the plant.
No more spending your energy and money on coaching classes or missing classes for rain, for rally, and any other nonsense. Subjects covered by multiple teachers with repeat telecasts. Doubts, concepts, applications, no problem. All explained through great and significant animation. So sit back comfortably in your home and watch Study Spectrum TV channel.
Now, body movements are not as simple as they look. Actually, body movements are an outcome of a complex interactions between the brain and the nerves, and the electrical impulse that is released from the brain and transmitted to the whole of the body with the help of nervous system. So you'll be learning about nervous system later actually. So there's just a system that connects the whole of your brain and the whole of your body and helps in the communication in between two of them. So this electrical impulse, when it is provided to the muscle, supposedly you have to walk, you have to get up. So your brain will send the first impulse to the part of the body that is related to it to get up, and that electrical impulse will go and reach the muscle and it will cause a movement, and this movement is known as a contraction. So this contraction will be accompanied with the help of the bones and any other skeletal structure like the tendon, the cartilage or the ligament, and perform the voluntary movement. Now this voluntary movement, once the impulse is reached to the location, to the site, this voluntary movement is then performed later. Now, before understanding anything more about the body movements, let's just understand a little bit more about the skeletal system. Now, the skeletal system is the basis, as I told you in the introduction, that it provides us rigidity, it provides us shape, it helps us in movement, it helps us in locomotion. So it plays a very important part in the whole of the human or any other organism for that matter. So let's start with the section of skeletal system before we understand a little bit more about the joints or the body movement and stuff. So the skeletal system, as I've noted over here, is the framework of the body. Now I can explain this to you with the help of an example actually. So supposedly you have to construct a doll, and the doll needs rigidity and support and firmness in it. But the doll that you've made is just consisting of the cloth. Now when it is only of a cloth, do you think that the model of the doll will be able to sustain the external pressure to it? Will it be able to stand? Will it be able to sit the way you want it to? Of course it wouldn't. So the thing that you would do to make it a little firm is that you would add either a plastic structure or a wooden structure to it. You would mold its hands inside, and you would attach the wooden sticks to its hands, to its legs, and you would attach a wooden frame to its main body, to its chest. So in this way the doll will get its shape. So similarly in humans, this framework is known as the skeleton, right over here. And skeleton plays a very important part in the human body, and I told you and I explained it to you why is it, but still we'll repeat it so that it becomes thorough to you. So the main functions of the skeletal system are to provide shape. Shape, obviously. Why so? Because if you wouldn't have the skeletal system with you, obviously your bodies would be deformed. They would be like jelly. You would not be able to perform any other activity. You would not be able to look the way you look actually. So deformation would be one point to it. So let me just write that. If no shape, you would be deformed. So the next function is to provide support. Now the skeletal system, it holds many vital organs, it holds the whole of the body intact, so it does a very important role in supporting. Like for the example, I will just tell you about the shoulder girdle. Now your shoulder is a different bone itself, but it is attached to the whole of your body. How is it attached? It is attached with the help of the skeletal system actually. So shape is done, the support system is done. Now the next is movement. The flexibility that you have in your body to perform any movement or to locomote, it's because of the skeletal system and the joints present in them, not just the skeletal system actually. So the movement part is made much more flexible and much more easier because of the framework. The next one would be protection. Now protection, obviously, since the skeletal system that is made up of bones, and we know that bone is a very hard connective tissue that is all over the body. So bones are usually covering the vital organs like brains, like the heart, like the skull, and it provides protection to them because we know that brain is a very sensitive organ. Just imagine that someone hit on your head, you would get so much of a shock, so much of trauma at that time. So the skull, what does it do? The skull is a bony structure that is present in your that covers your bone actually, covers your brain actually. So it provides a very vital role in the production also. Now the next one would be the production of blood cells and its regulation. Now we know that, now I'll tell you the matter, like what is it? The blood cells are formed in the bone marrow, and the bone marrow is right over here actually, in between the radius and the ulna. Radius and the ulna are the two bones, and I will be explaining to you about it in further also. So there's a thing known as spleen, the bone, and the spleen consists of the bone marrow, which is responsible for the production of blood cells. And we know that blood cells are really important for our body to perform the circulation, to provide oxygen to every part of the body, to provide the nutrition that is broken down in the stomach and to the basic components, and it is then provided to the whole of the body to carry out the metabolic functions and the other activities that are performed. So these are the 5 functions that the skeletal system performs, and that is why we call it the framework, because without it we wouldn't be able to sustain and be able to appear the way we do today. So now let us just emphasize a little more upon the skeletal system and a few of its parts actually. The skull is segregated into 2 parts, that's the cranium and the mandible. Now cranium is the upper skull, that is the upper jaw, and the mandible is the lower jaw, here. So this is the cranium, and this lower jaw or the lower jaw bone is the mandible. Now the mandible is movable. Now if you open up your mouth, you're able to talk because of your lower jaw being moving. So you're able to churn food because of your lower jaw being moving. The lower jaw, that's the mandible, also has the teeth held together intact in place. And the lower jaw is also responsible for connecting the cranium along with the mandible. So the cranium, now let me talk about cranium. Cranium is a hard structure that is present on the upper jaw. And I told you that cranium is not a movable structure. Why? Because it needs to provide protection to the brain, and it needs to protect the brain against any shock that has been given to it. So the mandible, as you see over here, these are the various joints, the connections actually, that hold the cranium together. So the cranium is held together by the fixed joints. These joints are the ones that cannot move. I will explain to you about joints before talking about this, about the skeletal system. So we are done with the skull. Now I'll again brief it to you. What is the skull actually? The skull consists of two parts, that is the cranium and the mandible. Then the cranium, that is over here, is the upper part, the upper jaw, and the mandible is the lower jaw. Mandible is movable and cranium is fixed. That means cranium is fixed with joints and it cannot move. The main function of cranium is to provide protection to the brain, while the function of mandible is like it helps in talking and churning food, and it holds the teeth intact. And over here, why is the mandible movable? Because you see a structure over here, you see this lower part, this. Now this is movable because it has a joint present right here in between the upper jaw and the lower jaw. So the joint is present over here and here, which helps it in moving and talking and performing any other function as well. So the next part of the skeletal system is the rib cage. Now rib cage is located where? We know that the rib cage is located in the chest, and the rib cage is made up of ribs. Now ribs, there are around, this is the structure of rib cage over here. So there are around 24 ribs, 24 pairs of ribs present actually. So I will just highlight the ribs with the blue color chalk. Now this is the first rib, this is the second rib, the third rib, and so on till the end, till here. So you can feel the hard bony structure, that is the rib cage, till the bottom of your chest. So what does the rib cage perform the functions of? Rib cage performs the functions of holding heart, holding lungs together, and giving them protection, because they are really vital organs of our body and they help in circulation and respiration, without which a human being or any other organism cannot survive. But now we're talking about the human skeletal system. So over here, as you see this structure, this is the chest bone. Okay, that's the chest bone, or in other words, it's the sternum. The scientific name of the chest bone is the sternum. Now the sternum is connected to the backbone. Now the sternum is connected to the backbone, that is this. Let me write it down. The backbone, or in other words, the spinal cord. By the help of these ribs. Now these ribs are actually curvy in the shape, so they can hold the lungs and the heart together really fine. So this structure in all is known as the rib cage. So I'll repeat it again for you to get it summarized. Now the rib cage consists of 24 pairs of rib bones. So it consists of 24 pairs of ribs. Okay, this. Now these ribs, they connect the sternum and the backbone, that is this, together. So this whole structure, in short, is known as the rib cage. Now rib cage also connects the shoulder girdle to the rest of the body, and it also helps in connecting the clavicle, that is the collarbones. Now let's move to the next part. We are done with skull, we are done with rib cage. Now let's move to the backbone. Now the structure over here.
No more spending your energy and money on coaching classes or missing classes for rain, for rally, and any other nonsense. Subjects covered by multiple teachers with repeat telecasts. Doubts, concepts, applications, no problem. All explained through great and significant animation. So sit back comfortably in your home and watch Study Spectrum TV channel.
I'll explain you about the segregation of the whole of the spinal cord. Now it is segregated into actually 4 parts. So this is the first part, this would be the second part, this would be the third part, and this is the last, that is the fourth part. Now the first part is known as the cervical column, cervical region. The second one is known as the thoracic region, because I'll tell you why. Now why is it known as thoracic region? I explained to you about the rib cage. The rib cage is here. Now rib cage, the other name of rib cage is known as the thoracic cage. So in this way, the spinal cord, this section is connected to the chest with the help of the rib bones, and that's why it's known as the thoracic area. This one is known as the lumbar region, and the last one is known as the sacral region. Let me write region down everywhere, just to make it clear to you. So the length of the spinal cord in an average male, it ranges to around 45 centimeters, that would be around 19 or 17 inches, and in an average female it ranges to around 43 to 42 centimeters, that would be around 17 or 16 inches. So the cervical region, the width of the cervical region is a little more, it is of ½ inches. So the width over here is of ½ inch, or you may say 13 mm, that is millimeter. Similarly, the lumbar region is also thick and it has the same width, that is of ½ inches. Let me write that down in another chalk to avoid confusion. ½ inches. But the thoracic region is thinner, and that is of 1/4 inch or 6.4 millimeters. The sacral region is the last part that goes and attaches to the pelvic girdle. I'll be explaining to you about the pelvic girdle right now.